Hello, I'm Claire LeCan. Thanks for joining us today. I'm with the University of Minnesota Extension in Rice and Steele counties, and I'm going to introduce our speakers here. We have Ashely Gallagher, who you're going to hear from first. She's with Dakota County Soil and Water Conservation District. And then we'll hear from Teresa DeMars, who's with Rice County Soil and Water Conservation District. And they're both representing our group that's hosting the webinar today, which is the Cannon River Joint Powers Organization. So they'll tell you more about that group, and also we'll learn all about planting natives to inspire pollinator-friendly landscapes. So go ahead and take it away, Ashely.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, Claire. Welcome. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. The sun is shining and maybe a little chilly for pollinators today, but it'll be fun to talk about them. So just to kind of walk us through what we are going to talk about today, a quick overview of what the Cannon River Watershed Joint Powers Organization is, and then a bit on why native plants, why use native plants, and then we'll dive into Teresa's talk about process of a project, how she got to design it, install it, and then now she gets to enjoy it, and hopefully all of you can have a similar project process. And then we'll wrap up with a bit on programs and funding opportunities. So the Cannon River Watershed Joint Powers Organization, we're 14 entities that have come together over the past couple of years here to implement our watershed management plan. So Cannon River Watershed is a large watershed. We're almost 1 million acres. About half of it is ag. About 10% would be considered in the 7-county metro area. We have a lot of miles of streams, with our main rivers being the Cannon and the Strait. Here you can see a breakdown of our counties. But we typically kind of look at the watershed in different lobes, and we have different land uses throughout those lobes in the watershed. So this would be a map of the watershed. If you don't live in the watershed, please stay in the webinar. The information will be relevant to everybody today. You can see our lower lobe kind of covers Goodhue County and a bit of Dakota. Middle lobe is a lot of Rice County. Into our upper lobe is a lot of the Lakes region, and then our Straight River lobe down into Steele County and Waseca. So that is the boundaries of our organization. And we're trying to get the word out on a bunch of different activities and practices, hence why we have a virtual learning series now. So to the question of why native plants, this is an oversimplified answer, but native plants were here first. So if we take a look at the Marshner map, this map was created based upon the original settlers were here, platting the land out, and they took notes about the vegetation they saw. And then Marshner is a person who took all that information and made it into a map so that we have some historical records of our native vegetation types. And this is a very rough drawing of our watershed, but this is the area covered by the Cannon River watershed. And what we have here, a number of different native plant communities, but some popular ones are wet meadows. We have a lot of prairie land and oak openings or barrens, and then big woods. These are the predominant native plant communities that have been here. Of course, we've lost a lot of our native plant communities. I think prairie across the state of Minnesota is down to like 1% of our native prairie is what remains in the state. So we have these native plant communities that have disappeared over time, but we can incorporate them back into our landscape. So a wet meadow might look like a rain garden in your yard, or a prairie might look like leaving some turf, but you have, a whole area that never gets utilized. So converting that to prairie. An oak opening or barren might look like you have some existing trees, and instead of having turf under that, you do some conversion of plants there. And even in our big woods, you might have a wooded lot, and this would be kind of getting some of those native plants back into the understory of that plant community. So there is hope. And just kind of a baseline on native plants versus cultivars and what those are and the definitions. You can see here, black-eyed Susan, a native plant, historically grew in this environment. It's adapted to our climate. It's part of the plant community, so bugs rely upon it and for food and shelter. And then a cultivar might also be a black-eyed Susan, but you'll see that it has kind of a fancy name in quotations. So this is a Maya, and it's been cultivated. So that's where you get the word cultivar. So it's bred from a native plant, but it's bred for specific traits. So we might want more petals on that flower. But as we breed that flower for more petals, then we might lose some of the other qualities. But like nectar value might decrease as you increase petal quantity. So there's a little bit more of a limited ecological benefit when it comes to cultivated plants. And then since we are a watershed organization, want to highlight just the deep roots of native plants and how those benefit water quality. You can see on this chart here our turf grass, teeny tiny roots, just a couple inches into the ground, but native plants, the scale goes down to 15. So a lot of our native plants have really deep fibrous roots, and those roots hold the soil in place, but they also allow water to soak into the ground, and it filters the water as it soaks through that soil profile. So we have pollinator benefit up top, but underneath the soil, we have a lot of biology and water quality benefits going on too. Native plants also are host plants for a lot of our insects. So I think many of us have heard about monarch butterflies and the decline, and a host plant that monarch butterflies need is milkweed. So that is their host plant. And then later in their life, they can use a variety of nectar sources, but blazing star is a really good nectar source for monarch butterflies. So each insect, host plant is something that they kind of work together. An insect might need a specific plant in order to complete its life cycle. So with that baseline of native plants underway, Teresa DeMars from Rice SWCD, she's an employee there, but she also lives in Rice County and has been active in this world for quite some time. And she has done a project at her house. So we thought it would be fun to just share what she has done. So I will stop sharing and let Teresa take it away.
Okay, Claire, it's not letting me share. Whatever. It says it's disabled.
Okay, I'll take care of that.
Well, as Claire's doing that, thanks everybody for tuning in today. And as they said, I'm Teresa DeMars. And so I'd like to share what I did at my property here in Faribault. Okay. Slide. So, so here is my house. Are you seeing the notes on the side or just the?
Yep. Well, you'll want to do a different version, or we're seeing your notes. Yeah.
Okay. Beginning. I'm not quite sure how to disable that. What I need to push. This didn't show up before.
At the bottom of your screen, if you press on the PowerPoint icon, it sometimes has the two versions. So maybe try the one that doesn't have the notes.
There we go. Do you see just the slide now?
You'll probably have to share screen again.
Oh. Okay. Sorry about this.
Maybe it gave everybody time to click on the link and go look at the.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
So there we go.
All right, maybe I'll just go back to the other part and we'll just look at it like this.
I would
We'll
just
just do it like this.
Oh, okay.
What's that? Can you see this?
Yep.
Okay, we'll just do it from here. We'll just have to make do. So this is my house in Faribault. And we bought the house back in 2009 and it was a foreclosure. And so this is what I started with. You can see that there was this big pine tree and there was this odd shaped rock thing underneath it. And so the landscaping was in pretty tough shape. Here's a side view. So it really needed some help. And the inside of the house needed help too. It had good bones, but it was kind of trapped in the 1970s when it was built. So the first couple of years, we kind of concentrated on the inside and did minimal. But eventually, we did start some landscaping. And the first time around back in 2011, I kind of just wanted to make things look presentable. And so we got rid of the tree. We made that odd rock-shaped garden circular. And then we added some edging material to the front of the house there and just split some plants. And my mom gave me some plants and I bought a few plants too to fill in the gaps. And it worked pretty good at the beginning here. It at least took the eyesore out of the way with the way the front of our house looked. But if you look right here, this plant and this shrub, when I planted those were like, it was like a pink leafed willow or something like that. And it was nice and small at first. And I didn't think they were going to grow very tall. I was thinking they'd stay tall or stay short like that. But boy, was I wrong, because these shrubs love the site of the front of my house. And they grew to be like 12 feet tall. They were just huge. They were like two unruly teenagers on a Friday night. You know, they just took over the space. And I kept cutting them back for years. And around the same time through that, you know, back from 2011, eventually I had a stray milkweed that started growing on one end of my landscaping. And so I just kind of let that milkweed grow. And year after year, it got bigger and bigger. And finally, I had, you know, all these milkweeds on the edge of my garden. And I wanted them because I wanted to help the monarchs out. And, you know, 5-6 years ago, I also started my job here at the district. So I was promoting our native plant sale and planting natives. So I thought, you know, I really should plant natives at my house, because I might as well talk or walk the talk, right? Do as I'm telling others to do. So I decided in 2020 to just totally change the landscaping at my house. So those two huge unruly bushes, I got my father-in-law's truck over and we pulled those out. And I ended up, I had to prepare my site, right? So I had to pull out the plants that I didn't want. I had landscape fabric underneath all those existing plants to try to keep the weeds away. So I removed all of that. I removed pretty much all the mulch. There's a little bit left here, but these were existing black-eyed Susans and some of the milkweed that were growing. So I left a tiny bit of mulch behind. But remove the fabric, remove the mulch, and then ended up getting some soil and some composted soil from Walmart and just filled in those spaces to even everything out. So that is how I prepared my site. Same thing with the circular garden, did the same thing. But there's lots of ways to prepare a site. So if you're starting with just the sod from your lawn, you can prepare your site in a lot of different ways. There's just plain digging out the sod or renting a sod cutter and cutting out that sod. You can do something called sheet mulching. That is where you take cardboard and you lay the cardboard on top of the sod in the shape that you want. You can also buy special sheet. It's like a special type of biodegradable plastic, I believe. And you can put that down and that will kill off the grass. You could do something called solarization, which is kind of similar to that. It's taking a clear plastic and putting it down, and the sun will in turn kind of kill off the grass. You can also do some cultivation if you have a large site. If you wanted to do many acres, like taking a field in our large plantings, sometimes people will cultivate and then seed into that. Some people will do, again, on those larger areas, a frost seeding. So they'll put right as the snow is about to fall in November, they'll put seed down, and the snow will, and the freezing and thawing during that time will bring the seed into the soil. And then next spring, they'll just naturally germinate. And then also, if you're doing several acres, many acres, sometimes landowners will they will hit the field with Roundup in the spring, and then a few weeks later, they'll take a no-till drill and they'll drill into it. So there's lots of different ways you can prepare your site. And so Claire, if you could share, there's a document that I found that explains these processes for site preparation. And it's from the SWCD. It's called Organic Site Preparation, and it kind of goes into details, all the different ways you can prepare your site. So Claire, if you could share that now in the chat, that would be great. Another document that I'd like you to take a look at is Bowser has a planting guide for planting natives. And that is a great guide that will go over all the things I'm going to talk about today, from site selection to plant selection, all those things. There's all kinds of information in that guide. And at the Lawns to Legumes Bowser website, which you're going to hear about. Ashely's going to talk about that program too. But there's just a ton of information on that website, and I highly recommend it. So, so then the next thing for your site, after I prepared my site, I had to have plant selection done. And actually, the winter is a great time of year to figure out what you want to get, because a lot of most native plant sales that are out there, and even the commercial retailers who sell native plants, a lot of the ordering goes on in the winter and the spring. So it's a great time right now to start thinking about where you're going to put your prairie, your little pocket of prairie, your little native garden, and to start thinking about the conditions of that site. So on my site, it's my front yard, and there is a maple tree in the yard. So it's kind of a site that gets partial sun, a lot of afternoon sun. It's very dry. And so I decided I wanted to do, flowers that could tolerate dry conditions, that were in partial sun. And the third thing was I really wanted to keep helping monarchs, because I had all those existing milkweeds already growing. And so I wanted to have plants that would benefit monarchs throughout the year. So what I did was I ended up ordering 2 native plant kits. I got one from our district, our butterfly kit. And then I bought one from Scott SWCD up in Jordan, Minnesota, just in the suburbs of the cities. And they had a monarch kit. And that monarch kit had 3 different species of milkweed. So by planting those 3 different species, I then would have had 4 different species of milkweed at my site. And so I thought that would be really good to help the monarchs. So when you're considering your planting spot, you're going to have to decide, kind of what your goal is. Are you planting for bees? Are you planting for butterflies? Both of them. What's your soil like? Is it a dry soil? Is there a lot of moisture from your eave troughs coming off of your house? Are there low spots? How much sunlight does it get? If there's a lot of shade around, you might want to consider some of those shade understory plants. And then the last thing is different bloom times of the plants, because that's really important, because you want to try to provide good nectar sources for your pollinators throughout the year. So you want flowers that bloom in the spring, and you want flowers to bloom in October and all times in between. And it also is nice for just the aesthetics, because if you choose plants that all bloom from July to August, then you're going to have you're not going to have any blooms for half the summer. And it's nice when you look at your house that you always have a few flowers blooming, because native plants aren't necessarily like annual plants that you would buy at a greenhouse. A petunia blooms throughout the whole summer, but a native plant might only bloom for a couple of weeks. So you want to have that diversity of bloom time to not only offer habitat to your pollinators, but also for it to look nice for your yard, to have some blooming flowers. Let's see. So here again, what we recommend with our native kits is to plant each one of the little plugs about a square foot apart. So you can see that's what I've done here. I kind of dug my holes to space them out, and then I just planted in between those existing milkweeds and other plants that were growing that I wanted to save. I saved my hydrangeas because there's a hydrangea over here, right here, just because I kind of like those. I think they're pretty. So you might have a combination of native and non-native or cultivars, as Ashely mentioned. I also have some sedums growing. The butterflies really seem to like the sedums in the fall, so I left some of those. It's kind of up to you and your personal preference how you want it to go. So here's the circular garden. And again, here's those spots that I cleared away, and I just interplanted those little plugs into. I planted some more over here. So anywhere there was an open spot, I just kind of spaced them out and interplanted those plugs in there. So, and then the next step is mulching. And I kind of have mixed feelings about mulch, because I mean, there are benefits to mulching, and the benefits, I think, are that it makes it look finished, and it reduces the weed pressure of all the different the plants that come in. It helps to keep moisture in the soil. I think that's really the biggest benefits, because I'm the kind of person, I'm not too good at watering. And that's one nice thing about native plants, is they require a little less water, I believe, than other plants. So so if you're busy and if you have a busy summer and it's hard to get to that, put that much maintenance in, that's one thing I like about natives. It's important to leave a little bit of space around the stems when you're planting the plugs, because you just want water and air to get to the stems. You don't want to, it can cause rot to form. So you kind of want to keep those stems free, so that water can get in there and air. The cons of mulch, this is actually before I did my native planting, and I even had the weed barrier. You still get weeds, and I think that's a really good point to bring up. I wish this summer before I weeded my garden patches, I wish I would have took a good picture, because even with landscape fabric, even with mulch, you're still going to get weeds. So there is going to be maintenance to your native garden. So I just wanted to show you, you can see the grasses, weed grasses that are coming up that you have to pull. It's also harder for the natives. Like, if you kind of have to decide with, like, in a front yard situation, do you want the plants to just grow? Do you want it to look really manicured and just grow where you've planted them? Or do you want your natives to spread so it covers everywhere? And I kind of want my natives to spread and cover everywhere. So the mulch, kind of, it slows that down, definitely. And then there's a cost to it every year if you're using the colored mulch like I have here. If you want to retain that bright color, you have to put new mulch down every year. So that just gives a thicker amount of mulch for those seedlings to have to, those new seeds to have to compete. Some mulches, you have to be careful what kind of mulch you select, because they can be made out of recycled wood, and you want to try to avoid those because that recycled wood can have chemicals on it that can leach into your soil. So there is a certification process from the Mulch and Soil Council. If it's certified, you'll have this MSC logo on it, and that's how you know it's mulch that is not made from recycled wood. So you have to watch out for that. Some other maintenance issues with native gardens. The nice thing is you can just leave them alone in the fall. You really don't have to do anything to them. I like to take
Broke up a little there. We lost you temporarily, Teresa. Can you hear us? No. This happened earlier when we were practicing. So we'll give her a minute to try to get back on. But if you have any questions, this would be a good time to put them in the chat or in the Q&A, or you can raise your hand down in your reactions panel, and I can call on you and let you ask your question live too, if you'd prefer.
I can just chat freely a bit if people aren't asking books. Yeah, so I think Teresa's doing a great job, kind of walking through the process and all the considerations. And I think what she's highlighting best is that just really think through what you want for your project and what your goals are, and then you can kind of make some of those decisions as you go. I just did, well, a gardener continuously changes their landscaping, right? So I have a few gardens that have been in for 8+ years, and I have a few native plantings that have been in for just a couple years now, and then put rain garden, 2 rain gardens in this year. So you can start small and then add more as you go too.
That's a good point. I think I see Teresa's back up, but people are often surprised, I think, with the native plants too, how they're perennials. So they keep coming back year after year and keep getting bigger. And so people sometimes plant them a little too closely to begin with. And then I've worked with some people that end up splitting them, and that works really well too over time. You can adjust as you go, like you're saying, Ashely. But we see your back, Teresa.
Okay, the screen sharing is disabled.
Again. The question about the mulches, unsure about the box stores. I know you just, ask for certification where there might be like a label on it. And then native plant sales, I'll get into that at the end too, but a lot of the local sales are going to be in the springtime.
Okay, so I think I was mentioning about leaving the leaves, leaving the stems, that pollinators will use this. In the spring, you want to make sure you have 3 consecutive nights above like 50 degrees. Usually that's in May. And try to leave some stems over 8 inches for ground nesting bees. And Claire, if you'd like to share that ground nesting bee handout that talks about the stems, that would be great. So for me, the next thing that I'm planning for 2024, there's a couple spots on my yard that I think I'm going to add some more natives, and I'm going to plant some more prairie. This is one trouble spot on the side of my yard. It's very dry. There's an overhang of my house, and I tried, there's a little bit of some sedums here, and way back when, back in 2011, I transplanted some hostas here, and they've pretty much all died because it gets shade in the morning and early afternoon, and then it gets just afternoon sun, and it's super dry. So I'm going to really look for some drought tolerant, partly sun, natives, and I think I'm going to try planting that here. So that might be my next area where I plant natives. And our yards are always a work in progress. This has been my garden for the last 12 years. On the side of my house, side of our driveway, I built some planter boxes, and they've just reached the end of their lives. They're breaking down, and I don't know that I feel like building new ones. So I think I might also plant some natives into this area, and just there's a lot of trees that you can't see. There's some evergreen and some trees, so my garden never really produced very well anyways. So I think I'm going to attempt to put some natives there too. So that's a project I hope to do in the future. And then here's my existing, that circular again. I just took this picture yesterday. And if you look right in here, there's all this greenery right here. This is a cultivar of bee balm or bergamot. And while the bees do like it, it's kind of taking over my garden here, and it kind of irritated me this summer, because I don't know if it's because of the drought, if it really, we've had several dry years, and so maybe that's why it kind of has taken over. But I think I'm going to pull most of this out, and I'm going to interplant again. And that's another good point. You're going to have, even when you plant a flat of many different species of natives, you might have 1 or 2 that does not like your site conditions. Back when I planted all those different milkweeds, one of the plants was marsh milkweed, and marsh milkweed likes a little bit more moisture than what my site has. So all my marsh milkweed died basically. So I know not to plant marsh milkweed again. And I'm going to have to find something and you might find that as well as you plant natives, you might have some species that really like your site and other species that just for whatever reason, they might not like the growing conditions at your site. So you'll just have to, from time to time, do some maintenance where you plant something new in there. So it's, excuse me, 12:36, and I need to turn it back over to Ashely. But this is the way my garden looks in the summer. And the great thing about planting native is that you'll get all kinds of different pollinators to come. And I'm going to skip to this slide here. And these are all pictures that I have taken of different pollinators at my house. So it's so much fun. I kind of call my gardens my jungle, because I have all different kinds of pollinators that visit, and it's so much fun to watch the diversity that shows up. So I hope that as you go to plant your native gardens, that you'll be able to see some of these pollinators and get that same enjoyment of being able to help them. So with that, I'll just conclude with, if you have any more questions afterwards, you can always feel free to email me or call us at the Rice SWCD. I'd be happy to answer your questions at any time. And I will stop sharing my screen and give it back over to Ashely, and she'll talk to you about some of the programs that you can use to fund your native landscaping.
All right, I will get back to sharing mode here. So resources, this is a few that I will cover, but this is not an extensive list. I'm going to talk about lawns and legumes, butterfly and bee habitat fund, conservation reserve program, some of our native plant sales, and pheasants forever. So lawns to legumes, your yard can be the change. If you haven't seen that around town, it's become a pretty popular program in the last couple of years. It is a statewide program. There is an emphasis on the rusty patch bumblebees. So there's priority areas, and there's a map online that you can look at to see if you're in those priority areas. But everything is done online for the application, and you can get up to $350, but you do have to contribute 25% of your own funds to that. There are plenty of resources online. Teresa alluded to some of those. There's templates for planting. There's even a coaching program through that. So people have volunteered to be lawns to legumes coaches, and they can provide some guidance for you as you work on your project. So statewide, but has some focus areas as well. And I think it's been very popular. I myself have applied a few times and have not gotten funded, but keep applying, I think, because they keep having funding rounds. The next one, Butterfly and Bee Habitat Fund. This is slightly larger scale. So you're looking at a minimum of 2 acres, a maximum of 25 acres. And this is mainly a program that provides seed at no cost. So if you're looking at this project, you're going to be entering into a 5-year agreement, and then this organization will provide that seed for you. I believe they have 2 different seed mixes, and then they can also assist on site prep and some maintenance. And Teresa even covered a bit on that as well. But this is not plugs or potted plants. This is for seeding larger areas. Conservation Reserve Program. This might be, even a step up. So we started kind of backyard scale and working our way up. You can do some smaller areas through Conservation Reserve Program, but most areas are going to be larger and have cropping history on them. There's, they call it the general sign up or the continuous sign up, but you're going to be working with your local USDA Farm Service Agency and Natural Resource Conservation Service office. So, you'd want to chat with those folks, but there are 10, 15-year or 30-year contracts. There's payments for establishing the native habitat, and then there's also a annual rental payment. So that's based upon the soils that are there. And Pheasants Forever. This does vary by chapter, so check with your local chapter, but they are willing to cover nesting cover, which would be like prairie habitat. And it can be up to 50% of the costs for that program. And then through our organization, we have to prioritize our funds, but we are looking at a native shoreline planting program. So if you are in a shoreline area, stay tuned, and we will have some funds hopefully available for smaller scale native shoreline plantings as well. So I added the and more. We always say at the Soil and Water offices, just come talk to us too. We can help you find the right resource for your area. Here in Dakota County, we have a program called Landscaping for Clean Water. So didn't even mention that one, but if you're in Dakota, that's a starting point for you with native plantings. The native plant sales, there's already a question about this too. So SWCD, let's go back. Our Soil and Water Conservation Districts, many of them will offer a kit. That's how Teresa got started and the program that Teresa works on too, I think. So you can check with them. Usually it goes on at the same time as the tree sales. So we're advertising soon, if not now, and then taking orders over the winter with spring distribution on those actual plants. Native plant suppliers, there are a growing number of retailers that sell just native plants. So if you truly want a native plant and you don't want to go to the greenhouse and have to sift through whether it has that, name in quotations or not, you can go to a native plant supplier. In our watershed, I think even Blazing Star Gardens in Owatonna is a native plant supplier. So there are some locally here too. Or it's fun to go for a drive and go to a new native plant supplier too. And then farmers markets, they sometimes even have plant sales and have the native plant retailers will bring some of their plants to some of the farmers markets as well. Organizations like Wild Ones, they different chapters will have plant sales as well. Usually those are going on in the springtime too. Rose, Teresa knows the most about this, but this is Faribault based, and they have a plant sale every spring. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep. There's the Grows group, and then there's an offset group of that, Partners for Pollinators, and they have members who will bring natives to their plant sale. The same with the Master Gardeners. They have a plant sale every year, and there's certain members that enjoy native gardening and will bring native plants to those two sales.
Perfect. So there's options.
I would add one other thing real quick. When you're selecting those plants, one good question to ask wherever you're buying your native plants from is check to see if they apply neonicotinoids to the plants. That's a pesticide, and you want to get native plants, and even at local greenhouses, if you want to help pollinators, even if it's a cultivar, try to choose plants that are neonicotinoid free.
I just, in case people try to look that up, Teresa, it's neonicotinoid insecticide.
Thank you. Thank you.
Big words. But yeah, thank you for that info. And when you're buying your plants, you can buy them individually, or basically don't feel overwhelmed either, because you can get a lot of plant kits. So you can just type in kind of what exactly you might want a sunny butterfly garden, and native plant supplier might be able to have a kit that's already made with plants that would suit that well. Books. I love books. And these are just a few that are at my home and in my office. Feel free to, look for your own, but, some of these like this, planting in a post wild world, kind of like larger scale, how you can plant flowers in different drifts. If you want to dive into the actual insects. You can look at this pollinators of native plants. Doug Talmy, he's kind of known in this world as well and has some resources out there. This one in the middle, the rain gardens, that has native plants and cultivars. But if you're going to be doing a rain garden, it's been around for a long time and is a great resource. So yeah, just plenty of books out there. You can buy them online or maybe even stop into a local office and see if they have one of them. And since I have kids, I do have to share this one as well. So it's Plant a Pocket of Prairie, sold in our local bookstore. I live Northfield area. And this can inspire our young ones to love native plants too. We wanted to highlight a bit on networking. Teresa did talk a bit about grows. There are Wild One chapters that you can join, Master Gardeners, also Facebook groups. When I first started, doing more native planting, Claire mentioned how you can share some plants too. So there's some websites where you can share plants. Also, just get inspired and ask questions within a Facebook group. But don't feel like you have to do your project alone. And then if our presenters don't have anything else, I would just say we have more virtual sessions planned. Our next one is Park the Plow and the benefits of no-till farming. That's on November 20th. And then the Gifts of Green, which is the rewards of planting trees. And we do have some ideas too for future topics, but we would love to hear from all of you if you have some topic that you would like us to dive into. I think Claire, already shared the poll here, so you can go ahead and enter that in. That's it for our presentation. I think we have a bit of time. Do we have any questions in the chat or anything we want to address?
We don't have questions in the chat at the moment, other than if either of you, Ashely or Teresa, have more specific information about arborist wood chips or arborist mulch. I did share a resource. There's a researcher in Washington State who has done some studies on different mulch sources, and as I understand, kind of says that wood chips, arborist wood chips, are a good mulch, like maybe really, like, I think they go as far as saying that's the preferred mulch in Washington State anyway from her research, but I don't know if you have anything else to share on arborist wood chips.
I know personally I go for like a shredded hardwood mulch, especially if you're going to do a rain garden. Anything that's chipped will float on you. So I just use a shredded hardwood. It kind of creates a little bit of a mat. And I like that in the beginning. And then, like as Teresa was saying, over time, I do kind of want those plants to fill in spaces. So I might mulch heavily in like the first year or two, and then just kind of back off as the plants fill in. So different strategies, but no great resources for you. Okay. Well, I can stop sharing as well. It looks like we got just a few answers. And if you haven't signed up for our future virtual sessions, please do. And I don't know if I'm the one that's supposed to wrap this up, but I'll say thank you to everybody. And hopefully we can all connect over native planting in the future.
Thanks for joining us, everybody.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
You dropped.
Where is the sign up for next sessions? That would be found at the Cannon River Watershed Joint Powers Organization website. So we can probably send, can we send that out, Claire?
Yep,
just
I
noticed
just
that.
put it in the chat, but we could definitely do that in our follow-up email as well. Thanks for asking, Ashley. And here's the event page, so you can sign up for each of the different sessions that we have scheduled so far, right on that second link. And there's a partial question. I think we're missing part of it, but if you plant a spring garden, when should you dig but probably like when should you dig up the sod? Which yeah, go ahead, Teresa, if you have a preference on that. Or
I think it depends on, I would read over that organic site preparations PDF. If you're going to remove the sod, you can do that right before you plant. And most native plants are warm season plants. So like our native plant kits don't come till the beginning of June. Same thing with the seed. The soil temperature has to reach a certain temperature. So if you're just removing the sod, you can do that right before you plant. If you're using the sheet method, the sheet mulching method, or the solarization, you're going to have to do that months before, even this fall. So I would look at that PDF document, organic site preparation from the XWCD Society, and that will explain the process to do those other site preps.
yeah, anything else? We have a few more participants. So if you have some questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Otherwise, I just have to say I'm here locally in Rice and Steele counties and I love bugs. So if you see any pollinators in your garden and would like help identifying them, that's something I really like doing. You can email me or text me photos anytime. Teresa takes me up on that.
I was going to say, I can attest to Claire's ability. She's excellent at identifying bugs. So we do that all summer long sometimes.
All right. Well, seeing no more questions in the chat or Q&A, I'm going to end the webinar and we'll hopefully see you at future sessions. Again, that link is in the chat and take care.
Thank you.